Engineering third annual Teaching and Learning Innovation in STEAM Day. We hope you've been enjoying this event so far and are so excited to have you all here with us for our fireside chat. This is a huge highlight of the day where our students' voices are heard, and on behalf of the College of Engineering students, Maisie Mohammed and myself are more than honored to chat with two very important special guests, Dean Pratim Biswas and Provost Jeffrey Dirk, regarding innovations in STEAM education. So just a little bit about our guests here today with us. Dean Biswas is our College of Engineering Dean here at the University of Miami. This is his first year with us as Dean, and he is a professor and faculty member in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. Dean Biswas also has an affiliation with the Rosenstiel School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences, and he is also recognized for applying aerosol science and engineering to multiple areas, such as energy and environmental, nanotechnology, solar energy, air pollution control, and medicine. Here with us today is also our Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs and Provost, Jeffrey Dirk. Provost Dirk is the University of Miami's Chief Academic Officer who appoints and oversees the deans of the 11 schools and colleges, as well as the senior administrators involved with research, undergraduate and graduate education, and other academic areas. Provost Dirk is also an accomplished engineer and scientist himself, as well as a respected educator with a deep appreciation for the social sciences, arts, and humanities. So again, we're more than honored to have these two very important people here with us for our fireside chat. And before we get started, us student leaders would like to introduce ourselves as well. My name is David Oliver, and I'm a junior majoring in biomedical engineering with the pre-med concentration, and I serve as the College of Engineering liaison within the Academic Liaison Council within the student government. I am also a campus tour guide for the President's 100 and the president for Phi Delta Epsilon Medical Fraternity. And next we have Maisie.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Macy Lamb, and I am happy to be here. I am a senior majoring in electrical engineering with a minor in finance, and I am also president of Engineering Student Council, serving my second year as president. Now we're going to be introducing Mohammed.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mohammed Qiyasian. I'm a third year Ph.D. student from the Civil Architecture and Environmental Department at the College of Engineering. I'm also the current president of Graduate Engineering Student Council. Today, I have the honor to have this opportunity to participate in this fireside chat session with the new Dean, Dr. Biswas, and also the Provost, Dr. Duerk. So I'm so excited to kick off this session with you guys.
Thank you, Maisie Mohammed. So Maisie Mohammed and myself have prepared a set of questions for Dean Biswas and Provost Dirk regarding innovations in STEAM education and in the College of Engineering. So to start us off, my first question is directed to Provost Dirk, and that is, in what ways are you striving to foster an inclusive and diverse environment within the College of Engineering in spite of difficulties related to COVID-19?
You're muted, Jeff.
Jeff, you're on mute.
I just want to thank David, you and Maisie and Mohammed, the connections I have to, in particular to electrical engineering as both the home of my bachelor's and master's degree and BME, where I got my PhD, not here, but at other universities. I have great affinity to the College of Engineering. And also as a former dean, it was a thrill for me to have the opportunity here at the University of Miami, to have the opportunity to recruit Pratim from WashU to here at UM. So your question on diversity and inclusion, I think really spans a lot of, what the University of Miami is, what our goals and objectives are. If you start, say, for example, at the student level, a lot of the things that we're doing, particularly in recruiting a really diverse student body, focuses around and making sure that we provide access. And so if you look just, for example, at our Black student population, we meet 100% of the demonstrated financial need of all of our students. For our Black students going back about 3 years, and now for all students this past year, we have a number of projects that we look at specifically here in the Miami area, but also nationwide, to work with not only the high schools, but also the community-based organizations to make sure that that access that we provide to our students and the financial support we provide to all of our students is something that's well recognized. I think one of the challenges that we have is some people don't recognize the fact that we do meet the demonstrated financial need of all of our students. And so they may see University of Miami as a bridge too far, either too expensive or too big. University of Miami is, as an undergraduate institution, is actually pretty small. It's only 10,000 students, which is sort of a nice size. Most state institutions are far bigger than that. And I think that sort of another thing that I'll share is, particularly during the pandemic, I see that Alan Gorky is on the call now. We've done an awful lot to make sure that students, in particular, as you think about sort of last semester when we had our finals being completely online, that the faculty understood that the difference between a student being on campus and being at home is in some ways the difference between having gigabit connections and almost in some cases a completely uncertain connection. Whereas at home, our students may have been competing with their brothers and sisters for bandwidth, their parents who may have been working at home, and to really encourage the faculty to understand that to be equitable, to be fair, they had to think about how to do the final assessments for their courses in ways that were in some ways were bandwidth agnostic to the extent they could. And so part of it is messaging. And also another thing I would say is providing resources. Alan and his team have made special technologies available to students who, again, may not have had those at home when they would have had them on campus, whether it be computing resources or camera resources or Wi-Fi resources. So we've tried to, during the pandemic, to be sort of responsive, adaptive, and nimble as we became aware of specific student needs.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Provost Duerk. So now I have a question directly from the new Dean of the College of Engineering, Dr. Biswas. So the question is again regarding to the COVID pandemic that happens since last year. So given the new difficulties and challenges arising for students due to the global pandemic with respect to the hybrid education, what are the upcoming policies and decisions that can facilitate education for students? There are a number of online learning platforms, for example, DEgr, Coursera, and Udemy that can offer online courses for students. So I think it would be an excellent idea to provide free access to our students to have those complementary resources which can facilitate their education during this challenging time of our life. So I would appreciate if you have some other suggestion and also any other recommendations. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. Firstly, thanks, Mohammed, David, and Macy for organizing this session. Thanks to Provost Duerk for joining us. And we've had a great first session for TALIS. This is our third TALIS event. And the faculty had some excellent presentations, and many of you, I think, listened to those. And now jumping into your question, clearly the pandemic has brought up significant challenges. We've all experienced it, but it has also provided new opportunities. You mentioned some with other online modalities, both for online learning and preparation, right? There are different. So there are two aspects. One is the technological aspect. We are familiar with this. We could bring new tools to bear, be it something as trivial as maybe using a smart board or some other technological innovation, all the way maybe to virtual reality, augmented reality. And then there are different modalities. We could experience different teaching methods using some of these technological tools. So both aspects really provided new opportunities to the faculty. And many of them, like the first session I referred to, many innovations and implementation of several of these were demonstrated. So it's really fascinating. So things that brought up challenges, allowed us to innovate, and many of these we hope to continue because they are so very effective. We will be discussing and having a set of our own courses. Our own faculty teach excellent material. Students cannot take all of them because of restrictions, but if these are made available, these could be accessed at different times, and we are exploring, as you indicated, guidelines, policies to do this so that even the student gets some credit. Some of these could be preparatory, right? For example, we are talking about inclusion, diversity. We want these students to come succeed. We want to prepare high school entrants into the University of Miami, very competitive. Engineering is a tough curriculum, but if we could guide them onto taking some of these online modalities, it would be great. In addition, we are in discussion with groups. I think Dean Fox was going to join us from DCIE. We are in discussions with them how to set up modular tools so that learning materials could be deployed. And with that, we could bring in experts. Of course, now you're a PhD student, so I'm looking at advanced education as you're referring to just not standard courses on edX or Coursera, but maybe team up with some of our colleagues elsewhere and prepare modules that their students could benefit. Because we, of course, as I said, have innovative instructors, innovative researchers whose material would be valuable to other schools and universities, but then we could bring them in and create modules for the benefits of our students. So just a short answer, all of this is in discussion. We are creating a center for excellence in teaching and learning. I have a strong belief in connecting research to education, learning, and we will be making much of these available as we go on through the upcoming years. So exciting times for the students. We would love your input as we go along, and I'll look forward to reaching out to you. So thanks for asking this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mohammed, and Mohammed, I want to add and build on a little bit of what Pratim said, and I think it's sort of the heart of your question, and that is, when there's a challenge, when there's a crisis, that's when innovation occurs. And I think one of the things that you'll see is that there was probably more innovation and more experimentation in teaching and learning by our College of Engineering faculty over the last year than maybe in the decade that preceded that. But having events like this in the 2 prior years positioned the college very well to be able to respond. But overall, I think both at the university and specifically within the college, you will see more innovation coming as a result of the challenges of the pandemic in this space than had there not been one. So I think it's probably one of the most exciting times for me in my 30-some year career in higher education to see what comes out of the pipeline that we're establishing right now.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Jeffrey Dirk. I appreciate all your answers. It's a very good idea that you propose, and we all are excited to having those kind of new policies and innovations, and appreciate it. Thank you. Next, Maisie.
Hi, yes, thank you so much for those answers. So my question is also related to COVID and is directed for Dr. Biswas. So COVID, and more specifically, the mixture of online, hybrid, and in-person learning platforms has resulted in a lot of variability among teaching styles pertaining to exams, projects, and sometimes even the topics covered in the courses as they had to be adjusted. So my question is that, are there plans for post-COVID regarding the evaluation of teaching to ensure standards are being met within each course?
Yes, absolutely. The short answer to that is indeed yes. And as I indicated, we've learned from the pandemic. I alluded to some modalities, the technology, but then comes the question really, how do we evaluate online teaching? And even there, we need to innovate. How do you gauge learning? These are some questions that really came onto our laps. We innovated on them as we went along. Some of you might have experienced it in your classes. And some of these technological implementation allows us to do, real-time feedback collection and things like that. So many of the faculty now are discussing. We've, of course, implemented some of these into our existing classes as we've taught them this last year. But what are some special features, as you pointed out, for evaluating hybrid modalities? This could be a little complex. Sometimes the student is attending in person, sometimes they're offline and things online, but off the classroom. Are integrated methods such as this better for learning? It could be, because the in-person class becomes smaller. The others could be observing the interactions with the instructor. Are there innovative real-time monitoring methods to gauge that learning is happening at a desired level? How are metrics impacted? We are also looking at global aspects, for example, retention. Does this really improve retention? Of course, we need to collect data. We can't jump into making conclusions by just 1 year, but some of these are going to be very much adopted and used going forward. And I mentioned the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning in Engineering. Dr. Ural is really championing this center. They will be accumulating all the data, because we also want to look at it collectively and then come up with some suggestions. Again, just to summarize, we do intend to both develop new evaluation methodologies and continue doing the data analytics, if I might use that term, and come up with ways to keep improving. So thanks.
Maisie, I'll share with you just a couple tidbits to complement what Pratim just said, and that is, if I look at the student grades in the fall semester of this year in comparison to fall semester a year ago, one of the things we saw is almost no difference in the overall grade point average for our students across the various schools and colleges. And we also looked at differences in the grades in classes as a function of modality. So we could look at the courses that were offered in the fall semester this year and compare online in comparison to them being offered a year ago face-to-face. And the difference in grades was not that much. But what we really need to know, and I think Pratim touched on this, is teaching is what we do, learning is what you do. And what we want to do is be measuring the output, and the output is your learning and not our teaching. And I think that's a subtle distinction that Darren and Dean Biswas have pointed out, and that is, our goal is to really to find those modalities, those pedagogical tools, and those course contents that align well and give us some clarity in terms of what courses should be taught in which modality. And the neat thing about the pandemic, if there is anything that's interesting and neat about it, is these are our first experiments run to figure out that stuff. So this is why I say it's an interesting and exciting time for us, is because we're running experiments that we've never run before. And all of you who are engineering students, and certainly all the engineering faculty, know how exciting it is to run a new experiment.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Actually, I'd love to ask a follow-up based on that response. So as you just noted, between the grades and the data that was being collected, I think those are all extremely important. But a more specific question is, how are you including actual student response and interpretation into that data? Because grades might stay the same, but that might just be because of student adaptability, but maybe their experience was different or deteriorated because of some hybrid models or the different types of evaluations that are happening. So I guess my question is just, how is this student experience being factored into the evaluation as well?
So it's a good question. So our institutional research group actually has tools that allow us to compare the written responses in the course evaluations across the different years as well. And I actually see in the chat somebody was asking a question. I think that's relevant too. And the question in the chat is, are we going to continue things like recording the classroom experience? So that's an additional academic resource for students. That's certainly one of the things we're talking about as well, because we've heard the students who have been in online or hybrid courses say how much they appreciated that opportunity to re-engage with or re-participate, re-experience the faculty discussion that otherwise would be lost to the ether, but now can be recorded and an additional educational asset to the students. And that arose directly from student feedback, both in the written comments and in the interviews that Darren, Pratim, and I do with the students. So we take all of that into consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you both for those responses. My next question is directed to Provost Dirk, and it's about post-COVID life at the U. So how hands-on is the College of Engineering planning to be come the fall of 2021? For instance, will in-person labs begin to look the same as they did for students before COVID?
So that's a dean question. That's not a provost question. I'm going to sort of throw the dean under the bus here, but I'll talk generally about what the fall semester is going to look like and why it's going to look like that. And he can talk a little bit about what are the sort of pedagogical plans for the college and how much we'll go back. Basically, for the fall semester, you may have seen the announcement that came out from the president today or yesterday that we're basically planning on a return to normalcy for the fall semester. So at this point, we're anticipating that the social distancing will no longer be required, that the face coverings will no longer be required, that virtually all faculty, staff, and students will have had the opportunity and probably partaken of the opportunity to be vaccinated. At the same time, we also recognize that should one of these variants emerge and take hold and not be susceptible to the vaccination process, that we need to have a plan B that looks a lot like this semester right now. So everything about the fall in terms of, you know, what will the physical environment look like if things continue to progress as the models are suggesting and the vaccine rollout continues, it'll largely look like one of, you know, a normal semester from the physical environment and things like that. Within the classroom, however, that's really up to the dean and the department chairs and the faculty to decide which courses now should benefit from what we've learned at the TALIS days previously, which ones should be converted to an inverted classroom, which ones should capitalize on some of the online experiences that we've partaken in this last year. That's not necessary for me to decide. That's more for the individual faculty, deans, and department chairs to work out, because they know their individual courses and content better than I do.
Right, and just to add,
at this point,
just to add to that, some of the in-person labs are best done, of course, in person. We've innovated to some degree and, of course, promoted learning through those modalities. We've learned some things, like some of the analysis observations could be done remotely too, but as the provost mentioned, we are hoping to be in person as of now, unless there's some other situations which again prompts us to move off campus. So the labs would be in person. I'd also like to point out that we have several active learning classrooms. So this could be a regular class where Dr. Ural and others have really set up an active learning modality with demonstrations, which helps in the learning process, right? So we are looking forward to some of those. We can couple those with some hybrid modalities. So as we again alluded to earlier, we will incorporate some innovations into even our existing classes, as the provost also mentioned. But you'll begin to see the same, hopefully better over the summer months. We are just going to prepare ourselves. We are also thinking of adding some new classes to make it much more exciting for some of the undergraduates, and we'll of course let you know about those too. I can mention some engineers are great problem solvers. We are in a good group here, along with, of course, everyone listening in. So we want to promote some of these classes, say what does an engineer do? How do they tackle global challenges? How do they come up with solutions? The second would be in innovation and entrepreneurship. We want to string it through the curriculum. On May 4th, many of our seniors will be presenting their design projects. And finally, the last thing is related to computing. You know, computing has become so integral that we want to teach some classes related to that, which might relate to STEM is important, we feel, even for a liberal arts major, right? So these classes would provide those opportunities. So a lot of things to come. Yeah.
Thank you for your responses. I do have a follow-up question to both Dean Biswas and Provost Dirk. Are there any developed practices within the past year regarding online learning that you do plan on continuing even after COVID?
Yeah, some, again, I'll take the first crack, then Provost can jump in. We've mentioned some like the hybrid learning methodologies, you know, recording, a simple concept of recording a class and then going back, and then the students even telling the instructor, you know, those aspects of the class were not good. This is literally real-time feedback. And I'll just refer to that as hybrid learning. Outreach programs, you know, having this modality allows me to bring in a sort of expert colleague or a colleague from industry to, you know, even give a modular lecture in a regular class. So many faculty have done that and using different resources, as was also alluded to earlier. The concept of a flipped classroom. I may not do the entire class in a flipped modality, but in the middle of the class, we can say, hey, here's the content, here are the recordings, go learn yourself, come back and literally have a discussion with the professor. So the other things that I think we've learned, how could we promote work in teams? We always tend to do that, you know, especially in engineering, but can I do that within the class, right? Using, let's say I might be lecturing, but then I might go on to Zoom and use breakout rooms, right? And rather than physically breaking up, maybe virtually break up the class. Interactions, real-time feedback, these are some things that we have learned and definitely will be using as we go along. Yeah.
I mean, to me, there's a couple other ones that I can think of sort of immediately. One is our ability to have access to not just our existing world-renowned faculty, but faculty and experts from around the world. Zoom eliminates the need for travel, and it opens up, it makes collaboration and participation so much easier. And by virtue of the fact that that barrier is removed, I think what you'll see is your faculty, your dean, me as a provost, using this as a mechanism to bring in expertise in ways that we would not have been as easily accessible previously. And I think that's a really interesting kind of thing. Similarly, I think that, you know, because your dean is an amazing negotiator, and he negotiated an amazing package for the college. As we go about faculty recruitment this year in the College of Engineering, I cannot imagine that we would ever recruit a faculty member who we would not have already seen in the classroom, because of the fact that virtually anyone who's done any teaching now will have had it recorded at some point because of the technology. And while a portfolio may be common for architects or a portfolio may be common for an artist, I think it's going to be far more common that we all think of our own personal portfolio of ways that we demonstrate our excellence as well as our capabilities. So I think that that'll be another way that the pandemic will influence how we go about recruiting our faculty members in the future as well.
Thank you both so much for your responses. Mohammed, if you want to ask the next question.
Thank you both for your answers. Now we're going to have a transition from COVID question, and we talk about more specifically about College of Engineering. My first question is from Provost Duerk. So this is a general question. There is a drastic need to increase the number of engineering companies participating in our Career Expo events, which will be held every year at the University of Miami. Usually the number of engineering companies are very limited compared to other majors, which causes networking career setbacks. So my question is that can work be done towards the additional of engineering companies for those Career Expo in future events? Thank you.
Yeah, obviously, right? If there's, and if you believe there's an insufficient number who are there now, then that certainly tells me there's a gap between where we are now and where you think we should be, and that represents a problem, and engineers solve problems. I think one of the things we haven't done well is really used our recent graduates and their connections to where they're employed now as a way to recruit the next generation of engineers into those same companies. And so I think part of that's because the University of Miami's traditional alumni association and alumni outreach has been not strong, but that's an area where the university's put a lot of effort in the last year. So I think linking sort of where our graduates are now with those who come back, you know, to find their next generation of talent is a critical need. That's also the responsibility of the dean and the faculty, because they also know where their graduates are. And so that's the easiest way, because those people are successful in their companies. The companies know what a University of Miami graduate looks like and how they can be successful. And so that's the easiest way for us to do that first, because we already have a demonstrated track record of success with those entities. I'll also share with you sort of an unanticipated consequence of some of the US tax law changes. It's actually really interesting. If you look at, say, California and New York and some of the recent tax law changes in those states and nationally, they are looking for places that don't, those companies and those individuals are looking for places that don't have individual incomes tax and don't have the same level of corporate tax. And so the number of meetings I've had this year, for example, with high-tech companies looking to relocate or locate facilities here has just been unbelievable. And it's really a consequence of, secondary consequence of things that I don't think any of us anticipated. And so I know that Pratim and I are both very actively involved in meeting with a number of high-tech companies that are looking to establish, you know, presence here. And the thing that they're looking for most is, do we produce enough talent, which is you know, and Maisie and David and Renee, and, you know, I can go through the screen here, but that's what they want to know is, do we produce enough talent, and is the talent good enough for what they have to do? We know it's good enough. We just need to show them that we have the faculty interest in engaging with them and the student interest in sort of staying in the Miami area. That's another thing that's also very important, is you guys have already been imprinted to, you know, sort of living here in Miami, and high-tech companies are interested in recruiting people who want to stay long enough to establish a presence, a significant foundational presence for the companies.
Great. I'll just
Not that you have to work in Miami, but I'm just saying.
Right. I'll just add a couple of things. We are also working to attract additional corporate partners. So there is a combined effort now. I think we call it ECAP, Engineering Corporate Alliance program, where companies can come in. And the key event that we will do, we will coordinate amongst all the companies, is have an engineering career event in the fall. And our Central Career Center, the Topple Career Center, is going to assist us, and they are extremely delighted that we will be doing it. Our corporate partners are delighted. So that will be very engineering focused. And as Jeff mentioned, we will reach out to our alumni. The other thing, we've asked our alumni to also get coordinated because they want to help the college, and it could be simple mentoring and things like that. So they are creating a network of their own to then connect back to the students. So some of this you should be experiencing and seeing implemented in the upcoming months itself.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you both. Actually, I think reaching out the alumni, that would be very helpful. I already know some of them and they have their own companies right now. That would be a very good idea and I really appreciate it. Thank you. Next question, Macy.
Yes. So my question is for both the Provost and Dean Biswas. So going off the same thread as student career support for Mohammed, I guess a little background context for the question. In the past, the College of Engineering had a dedicated career advisor in the Dean's office, as well as the career fair that was mentioned that you are trying to bring back. However, in recent years, the student organizations and student leaders, some of who are on the call right now, have really stepped up to bring back some of those events themselves, fostering connections with alumni and bringing back different events through the organizations. My question though is how are you and how is the college looking to improve the resources for students post-graduation? And specifically, what are you looking to do to support career or future academic opportunities for the students?
Okay, maybe I'll go first here. So this is also an important point, and I'll relate it to the the topic for the day, TALIS, teaching and learning, and we were talking about remote learning, and Dean Fox's unit division does this very effectively. So we have begun some discussions with her, and we promote the concept of lifelong learning. And, we want to continue providing that to you, even as you become alumni. And I presume this is what you're asking about. So one is just the continual learning with advanced topics. And again, you're here with us as an undergrad for 4 years. We make you do a lot of required classes, very important, beef up the fundamentals, but then there might be a specialized topic that you could not do, and you might then take that. We might offer it, if there's of course tremendous interest, offer it online through an online modality that you would have access to. So this is in the educational aspect. But in terms of the alumni networks that I mentioned, we are really beginning to reach out to them, have them network amongst themselves, because our current students would of course benefit directly by some mentoring and placement opportunities, but this is an ongoing process too. So that's another thing we would love to do. So both in your networking and building your networks, but also future academic opportunities. You might even be able to come back, do a master's and even a PhD sometimes, and so forth, right? We'll also set up yeah, go ahead, Jeff. Yeah.
I was just going to say, or any kind of course or module that we hear from you is, and others, is important, might be sort of the types of things we undertake. I think many of the faculty have heard me say that I think that professional growth and development of our alumni throughout their progression, throughout their career, is going to be like oxygen. If you don't have it, you die. And so part of our responsibility is to recognize that we have a shared commitment to your brand. You're a University of Miami graduate. And if we can support your personal brand, your continued growth and evolution as a leader in your field, that helps us out. And so one of the things we did just last year was, for the first time ever, offered to our alumni community specific courses in project management. These were like MOOC-like courses at no charge to the alumni in project management, cybersecurity, and I forget what the third one were. But it was sort of recognition that our brand is tied to your brand, and we have to think about continuous learning as something that's going to be what people will do in the future. Just like eating every day, I think you'll be learning every day, but probably in a little bit more intentional kind of way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think it also benefits our students who are here like you. Just imagine in your class, we have a professional join your class, we might promote some of that. So you could have discussions with a practitioner. That individual is, of course, learning something themselves too, but this interaction would be great. Yeah, just to add to that. Good.
Thank you. I think our next question is from Mohammed.
Thank you, Bruce, for your answers. Yeah, this last question of mine is directly from the Dr. Biswas, the Dean of the College of Engineering. So is there any chance to expand engineering disciplines offered by each department at the College of Engineering? For example, it would be a pertinent idea to add the transportation topic to the educational program of the Civil Engineering Department, as this specialty is standard across the top engineering schools worldwide. So stated changes would be a good advantage for both students and the College of Engineering. And I was wondering that if it would be possible for the future programs, we add some other disciplines to the current and existing program that we already have. Thank you.
Okay, good. Yeah. And I've been here about 2 months now, physically in person, but it goes back at least 6 months. So the faculty will relate to that. I've been having a lot of discussions with the faculty exactly around these lines. But one thing I'll say just in the outset, expansion of engineering disciplines is correct, but we have to be strategic. And if you mention or look at some challenging problem, relevant problem, you need a team of researchers to be working on it. So the faculty have spent literally the last 6 months deciding what are our areas of strength, what could become areas of strength, and how we can work together. And some of this you'll begin to see appear on our website, and I encourage all students to go occasionally and peek. It's changing quite rapidly day by day, as much as we can keep up and start posting this. So a set of strategic initiatives has been identified, and these are big picture problems, but each of them have a relationship back to a discipline, back to a department, in a cluster in the department, and you'll begin to relate to that. As was mentioned, these modalities have allowed us to connect. will remain a small specialized school compared to some of the state schools in engineering, but nothing stops us from partnering with other universities, especially leading universities, in addressing a topical area of interest or relevance, right? So you'll begin to see a lot of that, and some of that has already been identified in some of these write-ups in these strategic initiatives. So a lot of that happening. We feel that we've come up with a bold set, building on our strengths, and the structure is now set. Initially, it'll be 6 areas, 6 big areas, but then, of course, addressing a few challenging problems, and the students will directly start interacting. So you'll see a lot of going beyond your discipline and connecting to faculty in other departments. And then also through this, we are going to promote the integration of research and education. So even our undergraduates will start connecting to this move and effort that the faculty are making. So in a sense, a broad answer to your question, and you all should also bring up to the faculty areas that you feel are important. Give feedback on these initiatives, and we will be collecting that feedback also from the students. So you will see a survey come out pretty soon before the end of the semester to allow you also to do that in a coordinated manner. So thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a great news. So the last question is from Maisie.
Hi, so I know that we are out of time and we're actually over time right now. So to be respectful, I think we can hold it off and maybe we'll host an Ask Me Anything or Ask It next time. So everyone will definitely be invited to that. But I guess we'll close it off now with Mohammed. So thank you guys.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to sincerely appreciate your time, attention for today's session at the third annual Teaching and Learning Innovation in STEAM with TALIS Day. Special thanks to our new Dean, Dr. Pratim, Biswas, and also the Provost, Dr. Jeffrey Duerk, who kindly answer the students' leader questions and also help us for future events and programs. I really appreciate your help. It should be noted that there wouldn't be such a successful TALIS Day with the help of our great organizers, Dr. Ural, the Associate Dean of Student Affairs, and our instructional designer, Rainy Evans, who kindly taken the lead and managed the whole process during this challenging time of our life. Thank you all. Now, I would like to invite all of you to hear our keynote speaker, Dr. Jamshidi, who is the chaired professor at the University of Texas, San Antonio. He received his Ph.D. in electrical engineering from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. He also holds an honorary doctorate degree from the University of Waterloo in Canada, Technical University of Crete in Greece, and also Yurdu University in Azerbaijan. He has over 850 technical publications, including 74 books in English and also in 5 other foreign languages. He has graduated 65 PhD and 85 master students so far. Some of his honor include U.S. Army Service and Achievement Medal, IEEE Centennial Medal, and also IEEE USA Lifetime Award in System Engineering. So I appreciate if Dr. Jamshidi can start his lecture.
Well, thank you to our student leaders, to Dean Biswas and to Provost Dirk. We have a brief break. Our keynote will actually be at 3 p.m. and we will have the introduction by our distinguished research professor, Dr. Daniel Berg will be introducing our speakers. So we do have about 10 minutes for a brief break. I know it's been a really engaging and exciting afternoon, but we will take a 10-minute break and we will remain on this Zoom call for our keynote speaker. So thank you. This was a fantastic fireside chat, and we appreciate our student leaders, our dean and our provost's participation.
Thank you. And I'd just like to quickly mention that we were asking the questions today, David, Mohammed, and myself, but if you have any questions you specifically would like to ask the dean, he is graciously hosting an Ask Me Anything on March 31st at 12 o'clock. So the Zoom link is in the chat and you can save that date and come ask any questions you may have addressing your own concerns or concerns of an organization you may lead. It's a great opportunity to have your voice heard.
Hello, Professor. Are we finished?
Our keynote will begin at 3 p.m. So we have a few minutes break.
Is that Professor Jamshidi, Darren?
Professor Jamshidi, I believe, has joined our call. Let me.
Oh, okay, he's got about 5 more minutes. Yeah. Not every day he gets 2 introductions. There's happens to be a conflicting thing at 3:30. The Nobel laureate who went to the same college in high school I did, who I know.
Oh, wow.
Speaking in chemistry department. Not every day. That was a very interesting multi-sessions. There was something of value in both of them.
And both, I thought both were fantastic. I'm sorry I had to leave the first one a little early to start the second session, but I will watch the video recording of that session.
And okay. Very good. Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm especially pleased and honored to introduce Professor Mo Jamshidi as our keynote speaker for today's Teaching and Learning in STEAM TALIS Day program. Professor Jamshidi has had a distinguished career, become a multi-fellow of the Institute for Electrical and Electronic Engineers, the American Society for Mechanical Engineers, and the American Association for the Advancement of Science, among many other recognitions. With almost 1,000 technical publications, and as was mentioned earlier today, he's had 65 Ph.D. students, of which 22 Hispanic Americans and Afro-Americans. His academic appointment is at the University of Texas, San Antonio, where he is a Luther Brown is the vertically integrated project, or VIP. I present Professor Mo Jamshidi.
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Professor Berg, for introducing me. It's my honor to meet you virtually. I have heard from you even before you joined University of Miami, primarily from Jim. And I also like to thank Dr. Ural for organizing a fantastic day of really looking at our education, our possibilities. And I would like to now basically start the lecture by, can you see my monitor here?
Yes.
I would like to indicate to you that if the audience want more information on this website, they can learn more about the VIP model, as well as some national articles of the Hispanic outlook of Hispanic education, which interviewed me on 2 occasions about my programs. The outline is that I will have some introduction about the idea of minority engineering education, and then toward the middle of my talk, I pay attention to the VIP model. I have done some search for preparing myself for this particular occasion and looked at the forecast of composition of ethnic minorities among children under 18 years old from 2016 to 2060. And in addition to that, I also had done some research about the future of the American population at large, what is going to look like in 2060. Then I will talk about the birth of NASA ACE Center in 1995. ACE stands for Autonomous Control Engineering. I was involved 10 years with NASA as a special government employee, both at the headquarters and as well as JPL. And I was, once I left NASA in 2004, I basically came to Texas from New Mexico and moved my ACE activities to San Antonio. I am getting an call for telephone here, which I do not need that. Okay, the VIP engineering model, as Dr. Berg mentioned, is a vertically integrated project. And we go about the outcome of that program for 26 years, combining it several universities in several consortia of funding. In 1994 to 2005 at the University of New Mexico, collaboration with others, which I'll go over it. And then at UT San Antonio from 2006 to 2020. And most recently, we had a collaboration with MIT and many other universities, which I'll go over it later on. We also want to go through an idea of consortium building among majority private and public schools and other minority institutions, and I will make a conclusion on that. In 2011, I was honored to be at the National Academy of Engineering annual meeting, and I was witnessing a distinguished lecture by late Dr. Charles West, former president of the Academy, as well as the former president of MIT. And his entire talk was basically about minority education in STEM areas. And he was very concerned that students with ethnic minority background, they get into this higher education program, but they drop out. And I like to discuss with you some of the reasons for that as my own personal opinion, not necessarily representing my university or anybody else. Looking at the composition of ethnic minority among children under 18, we are looking in 2016, 51.1% are non-Hispanic white, and it is forecasted to be going down to 36.4% in 2060. Along that same time period, the Hispanics are going from roughly 25% to roughly 32% in the same time period. African Americans 15 to 16, and Asians would be 5.2 to 8.1, and all the others combined, like native Hawaiian, native Alaskans, and Pacific Islanders, and so forth, going from 7.1 to 13. The tabulated form of this, you can see that that it's anticipated by 2060, we have roughly about 84 million of our population will be under 18 years old, and majority of those will be Hispanics, the way they have forecasted. And I'm not sure what kind of tools they used for at the US Census Bureau, but as a person who is doing forecasting myself for my research, I assume that they're using machine learning tools and data analytic tools and AI to get to those numbers. So in this situation, I like to now switch it to maybe this change basically is going to affect the overall growth of Americans in that time period. In that time period, for the children, for the time being, you're talking about 16% increase in Hispanic, 13.6% in of two or more races, 6.3 Asian, and 2% for Black. And then among the white would be minus 22% roughly reduction, and minus 33% non-Hispanic white. Alaska natives and native Hawaiian, they don't change that much. Now, to look at the overall population of America, and what we see here is that non-white Hispanics as a whole will be go down 24%, Hispanics 71%, African American 13%, Asian 59%, and others 11%. So it is anticipated by 2060 all minorities combined would be equal to white in the United States. When I was working at NASA headquarters, I was involved in a national board for NASA on utilization of minority and women-owned businesses for collaboration with the prime contractors. And our administrator, Dan Golden, was extremely keen on this trend, and he was very influential in really supporting minority education in the best possible way. So in 1995, I actually was spending a year in France, a guest of National Science Foundation of France, CNRS, but from remote, I was working with my colleagues at New Mexico, at North Carolina A&T, and HBCU University, and New Mexico State University, and New Mexico Highland University. We had basically 4 universities. 3 of them were Hispanic serving, and 1 was historically Black. And we got a grant for over $6.5 million. And the mission of that grant was to educate minorities at the highest level of engineering. Once we got the grant and we got the first check coming to the campus, I was so naive that I would go to local high schools and I find what I want and bring them to University of New Mexico or wherever else. No such luck. So it was recruiting students in our new, very new center was quite challenging and scarce. So I had to come up with some kind of innovation that I could get them to basically interested in college in the first place and in STEM areas of engineering in the second place. And I found very quickly that I have to go down the chain to even high school level, freshman high school level, and bring them to the campus as an intern and be able to get them to appreciate what hard work means if they can continue working and educating themselves. So we were able to also receive a second grant, which I was PI on both of those grants. called Pursue, Performing University Research for students and in undergraduate education. And these two really helped us bring the pipeline from high schools and four-year colleges, as well as community colleges, to our program. And the pool of the students that we already had, we had plenty of majority and plenty of foreign students. And I brought minorities into one group together with majority and international students. So what I devised was a pyramid, which I call it vertically integrated projects, which has as an input high school kids and underrepresented minorities, community colleges, which they could transfer after 2 years from their own colleges, and bring them in, put them into groups. We had plenty of money and we had plenty of projects, all of them directed toward NASA's missions. And we were able to actually bring NASA individuals also involved in our mentoring program, bring them onto the committees advising our own students. So what this grouping, which had several of them throughout the College of Engineering, we had the high school kids get excited by coming through the first internship, and they apply for the college. They come into the freshman year, and they go and they see in their team PhD and master students who are several years older than them, and they can see with their own eyes and mental capacity, hard work will pay off. So this is how actually we were able to recruit, and the kids would come to the program. They would find their own friends and their own relatives, and they basically word of mouth helped us a lot by bringing several students into the program. And this structure has a lot of merit. It has recruitment involved, mentorship, motivation, camaraderie, and so forth. And they basically, as I said, they learn how to value hard work as they associate themselves with the PhD students. And I remember one day I had a junior in mechanical engineering coming to my office and was complaining. He said, was an African-American student. He wanted to quit school. I said, why are you quitting school? A week before that event, one of my Indian students from Bangalore, who was a top-notch student in robotics, hardware, software, theory, everything, he went to California, to San Jose, and interviewed with IBM and came back with a $90,000 offer, job offer. And I told this student, his name was Steve. I said, Steve, here is Kishan, who came to this country 4 or 5 years ago. See, he prepared himself to grab on this kind of opportunity. Are you kidding me? You're trying to quit? He not only did not quit, he graduated, got a master's degree, and last thing I know, he was working for Sandia National Lab. That is the kind of positive pressure with which students, especially young ones, were going under in that situation. So the master students gets a piece of this pie, being that major project. And of course, the PhD student is the leader of the group, of course, reporting to the faculty and advisor. And he would get out faster because everybody is partially working toward his goal of finishing his dissertation. I have to mention to you that fortunately we had money to give to everybody at every level of this pyramid. Okay, but money is not the only factor, as you all know, to succeed. So then we will have, as I mentioned before, we had several interns and two-year institutional students coming to the lab and working with several different labs. We had working with PhD students and learn about what is going on in there. Now the question I pose to all of us: why ethnic minorities do not get attracted to as many as we like in areas in larger numbers in STEM areas? In my humble opinion, is that a lot of them, or some of them at least, they are brought up in a household which unfortunately may have a single parent in it. They don't have access to a very successful maybe role model. And they also, the high school, in my opinion, both for majority and minority students, both public and private high schools, they're not doing a good job, in my opinion. And an example is my own son, who was going to a private school in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and he was a junior going to become a senior, and I noticed he hasn't had a single course in physics in that high school. I brought him to the campus and signed him up for a university physics course, and he ended up going and get the engineering degree at Purdue University. Now he's working for Blue Origin and designs hardware for rockets to send to space. So also on top of that, we used to have an internet boom. Now we have AI boom, and AI boom basically will attract a lot of computer scientists and computer engineering students and other engineering students who want to have a quick, financially rewarding career, and they get attracted to Wall Street and go to those kind of companies, and STEM is just not very, very attractive to them. So therefore, the main difficulty again is, as I said, in high school education, and as it was the case for my son, it was possible that you go through 4 years of high school without acquiring much knowledge of mathematics, physics, or even chemistry. And I should also mention the role of the parents at home is very, very critical. I used to work with my children, especially my son, every night, that if needed to be. Now, the outcome of 26 years of minority education using minority graduate students, the cumulative number of master's students at all those several campuses, New Mexico State, Southwest Indian Polytechnic, North Carolina A&T, and University of Texas, San Antonio, and again for North Carolina A&T, combine all of them about 144 master, all minorities. And then the yellow curve down below is about 44 PhDs, all minority. I'm proud to indicate to you that among my minorities at New Mexico, I had 2 Native American PhDs, if you can believe that. One was a mechanical engineer, one was an electrical engineer. The electrical, when he was preparing for defense, came to me and said, "Professor, I have 17 offers. I don't know what to do. Which one to take?" I said, "Don't ask me. Go home and talk to Barbara, and she is the one who's going to be living with you for the next several years." So he chose one which I think is remarkable. He is now just on a confidential basis, works for the national defense of our country. And we are very proud of him. And the other student was a mechanical engineer who was native of Seattle. Before he even defended his PhD, Boeing took him to Seattle, back to Seattle. And here shows the percent ethnicities of the graduates through VIP. Majority of them are Hispanic, as we can see. And we also had African American, because of thanks to PhD programs that I also had a role to play in building it at HBCU in Greensboro, North Carolina. And on the average for these 26 years, we had roughly 5.5 masters per year and 1.7 PhDs per year. Now, these impressive numbers of graduates, again, could not really been done by VIP approach, because we will basically have some kind of manufacturing line which bring high school kids to a college degree. And throughout the first 6 years of existence of the ACE Center, we were able to get enough reputation at the national level, and we were able to attract all the vulnerable students that we could find. And of course, there is also a big challenge to VIP, and that is, for example, what can you do when you run out of money? Because we were actually supporting everybody. So, or what do you do when all the members of the pyramid graduate and gone? So we needed to have ideas, we needed to have continuation of funding and sustainability of our center. And then, of course, we also were hoping that administration of universities, from college to university and to state boards of higher education, would come up with some funding or matching funding to continue working on it. So recently, we have been doing consortium building among majority, private, public, and as well as historical Black and other minority institutions. In 2015, we submitted a grant for Office of Secretary of Defense and Air Force Research Lab in Rome Air Force Base for $6 million, which was included 3 universities, UTSA, Hispanic Serving, NCAT, HBCU, and CP, Southwest Indian Polytechnic Institute, 2-year engineering college for Native Americans. And the good thing about it, and incidentally, their engineering program was running until recently by one of my own former PhD students. And he was also connected, CP, to 11 tribal colleges, primarily in South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana, in all those mountain regions of the country. And we continued the VIP model, not only at UTSA, but at NCAT, as well as CP, and it was very, very successful. And the theme of our center was autonomous vehicles. Now, in December of 2020, I was approached by my colleagues at Texas A&M and University of California, Davis, to take a lead role in a $20 million multi-year grant from National Science Foundation, whose objective was to create an AI institute dealing with challenges of the next 50 years. And I was the lead PI at the lead institutions, and we attracted 15 industry and healthcare providers. We got at least 55 letters of collaboration from industry, from medical schools, from the startup companies, from major corporations, and so forth. And what I did, as I had done before with MIT and University of Arizona before, I was trying to nationalize a VIP model. Before that, I just want to say a few words about UTSA, in case you are wondering what kind of place we have. we have 33,000 students, 65% of them are minorities. From that, 57% are Hispanic. The rest of them are primarily African American and Asian and some Native Americans. And we are the second largest Hispanic university in Texas. And we are also sixth one overall in the United States. This is a chart from the proposal that we submitted, which is still under review, is nationalization of the VIP model. As I said, we chose UTSA as the coordinator of the entire institute, and we had Texas A&M University, University of California, Davis, University of California, Santa Cruz, which by the way is also Hispanic serving, MIT, University of California, Berkeley, US Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, and Mitre Corporation, which came in at the no cost to us. I have had the pleasure of working with that company for at least the past 10 years. And as you see around each of these units, including UTSA, there are 3 circles. Those stands for community colleges, K through 9, as well as high schools. And we were able to basically put VIP into action. Here is how that worked. On the UTSA's role here, we do have several AI programs in our curriculum across the campus. And recently, we have a new president, Professor Taylor Amy, who came from originally from Boston area. And we are building up our downtown campus, and we are creating a new College of Data Science downtown. And we have already a $100 million grant, which we got recently in the same situation for application of manufacturing and cybersecurity. And I should also mention that since I arrived in Texas in 2006, there has not been a month that we don't have a construction going on campus. 3 major science and engineering buildings have been built from scratch, each of them price tag of $85 million. So it was nice for me to come to a campus which has this kind of positive slope of building up, because UT system, where I'm serving as an honor as a council of the Chancellor's Council, has put billions of dollars on other campuses aside from Austin. And we have in the UT system 15 campuses. 6 of them are fully medical campuses, and the other 9 are regular campuses. And this here in San Antonio, we have one of each. We have UTSA and we have UT Medicine. And we have joint collaboration in many, many areas. So the elements of the nationalized VIP model, this is something may interest University of Miami for future opportunities. Leadership of the VIP can be from any partner university. Doesn't have to be in the initiation campus or partner. Students from any institution can populate the pyramid VIP model headed by another university. Both local and online progress of constituents will be available. We have weekly seminars, we have leadership meetings, we have annual progress meetings, etc., etc. We have a student mobility, meaning a student from San Antonio can intern in Davis, California, or a student in College Station, Texas, can intern at MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and so forth and so on. And this will allow basically a lot of coordination built into it. Faculty members of any partner schools can be a member of a committee of a master's and PhD, can even be a co-advisor from another campus, working together on, of course, joint publication, joint patents, joint startup companies are all are byproduct of what I'm talking about. The practice also provides a unique opportunity for underrepresented students, particularly those who have some issues in terms of medical issues and other issues. And also it works for majority, minority, everybody likewise. So in conclusion, I would like to indicate that the VIP model has been very successful. I've already used it in several grants, some successful, some not, including another earlier one with MIT, with Arizona, and even National Science Foundation is aware of this model. And they really unofficially had a tacit approval of its goal and its features. And I want to also give acknowledgement and credit to not only University of New Mexico, North Carolina A&T, New Mexico Highland University, New Mexico State University, UT San Antonio, and Southeast Indian Polytechnic Institute. And we also hope that women and students with disability can also join, and we are also be able to attract them to come. And in my final line of thought, VIP model and the concept behind it, which doesn't have to be always called VIP, you can come up with your own name, can be used for educating as an educational tool for every group of Americans, not just minority, for everybody. So I want to thank again the University of Miami College of Engineering and my colleagues there, and I'm open now for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Jamshidi. You've given us many ideas to think about, to ponder, and to implement, and we're all striving to become more inclusive and diverse when we're educating the next generation engineers and scientists. And your track record is very impressive, and it's such an inspiration for all of us. And I'm sure that we have our faculty members with questions for you today. So I open the floor for questions from our faculty for Dr. Jamshidi.
Thank you.
This morning we had a session where we had faculty from our biomedical engineering department, and I see that our chair is here, Dr. Menz. They have a very unique program that they're also implementing, working with local high schools to mentor underrepresented students, and they're looking for ways to make that a sustained program. So perhaps Dr. Menz may have some comments.
I should mention that I believe, in my humble opinion, the key is the relationship between two-year colleges, high schools, and continuous collaboration with them, bringing them as intern. You know, before COVID-19, my lab here in San Antonio housed as many as 25 interns, some of them as far away as France, coming all the way to San Antonio to be joining our team. And some of the comments from the parents of these kids, 12 years old, who was building a robot in the lab, 12 years old. And these kids, their parents gave me such a rewarding knowledge that I couldn't even purchase it for $1 million. This is amazing, really, and what transformation was taking place in the minds and brain of these young people that their parents immediately recognized at home, and they were very thankful to that. And we are hoping, and we are cautiously optimistic that in the summer of 2021, we can partially open our lab for internship again. So in my opinion, if we can bring those young people early on campus and learn about what's going on in your fantastic university, in your fantastic college and laboratories, and mentoring them. And then what we do normally at the end of the summer, we have a graduation ceremony for interns.
Oh,
And we bring the parents to the university to witness their kids and what they performed while they were away from home. And we gave them certificates and we gave them award. This year, I have the good fortune of chairing two major conferences, one in Sweden, one in Taiwan, both of them virtual right now. But we are bringing 12 to 16-year-old authors in that Congress. So these kids are going to be making presentation to a global audience in China, in Japan, in Australia, and so forth. Imagine what kind of impact that have in their minds. So any kind of thing you can bring up these young people and incentivize them, it would be really work very hard, work very, very well. Any comments, any questions?
Sorry, I just realized I was muted. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Oh, I remember. Yes. How are you, sir? When I was there, I met you.
Yeah, I found it very interesting. I think there's a lot of parallels with what we presented this morning, where Ashu started with an idea, and we actually had a discussion this morning of how do you scale it up. And I think, what you presented is actually a very good example of, hopefully how we can maybe try to use some of the same approaches to scale it up from that initial starting point, and including, seeking some external funding to support the initiative.
Yeah, I would love and would be honored to extend my lending hand to University of Miami College of Engineering, not just because my good friend Jim Tien is for the whole college and all the faculty and the students, and I'm very good in building consortium, and I have a lot of connections. So you come up, bring an idea, come up with an opportunity, and says, Mo, let's put something together. And what do we need? What other campuses do we need? What kind of areas we need? We can go. Fortunately, we have such a wonderful country, such a wonderful institutions of top notch around the country, around the world. We are really have a very good chance to succeed.
do we have other questions or comments for Dr. Jamshidi? I think I can give the floor to Dean Biswas.
I actually have one last question before you move on. Dr. Ural. Dr. Jamshidi, thank you so much for the presentation. I thought it was very informative, at least for me personally. So I had a question about the logistics actually. So have you collaborated your lab with other student organizations to place them in such internships?
I didn't catch your last part of your question.
I was basically asking about the collaborations with the student officers, let's say Society of Women Engineers, Society of Black Engineers, and etc. Have you thought about it?
Oh yes, I have been. First of all, I've been a member of IEEE for 54 years. As a teenager, I was a member of IEEE. Now I'm a life fellow. Then I am an advisor to two student organizations on campus. One of them is the Advanced Robotics Competition Team, and then one for a local Iranian Student Association, since I'm originally from Iran. And we were able to really create and coordinate programs together. I have, for example, I'm teaching in robotics course this semester, and I invited as an auditor some of these members of this club. And what I did, because we are in COVID-19 era, I actually, from my own personal accounts, I bought 25 or 27 robots and gave to every student a robot in their own apartment to work on the project. And they're now building all toward a IEEE publication by the end of semester, each individual student. And they go through search, literature search, then they go through modeling, they go through simulation, hardware implementation, design, and writing it all into one technical paper. And then they get excited to use that project as their thesis for a master's degree later. And 80% of my students in that class are Hispanic.
That's great. Yeah, that's great.
Any other comment?
There's also an initiative that our university is trying to get together with faculty from the School of Education and also Arts and Sciences and Engineering, and trying to make an impact in areas like you said, having the public schools as a pipeline. We feel like that's a big task to get the policy in place, to do some teacher training and to work with the local public school system in order to be able to get those students to be on our campuses. So did you work with your public school system, or did you identify particular schools and just work with them?
Yeah, we in fact, thank you for that comment, Dr. Ural. You reminded me that something which I should have also mentioned. In both our recent consortium, we have a channel for webinars and seminars and short-term workshops for high school teachers. For example, teach them fundamentals of machine learning, teach them artificial intelligence, teach them autonomous vehicle, and many ideas which you take it to the high school, which is normally 3, 4, 5 years before they really get exposed to those topics, and that would help a lot. So that is absolutely something that the Department of Education needs to. In fact, in my NSF AI grant, which is under review, I had psychologists on my team. I had education folks from College of Education. I had from business school, from science school, computer science, electrical, mechanical, biomedical, all involved. I'm, you can check with Jim. I'm very good in coordination. I can put people together because you might be collecting coin or collecting stamps. I collect friends because I love them. I love to be sociable.
Thank you. Thank you. You've given us fantastic ideas.
My pleasure. And is the video of this lecture will be available later?
Yes, it will be. We're recording it and I will be sharing that with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If there is nothing else, then again, I would like to thank all of you, thank the Dean, thank Associate Dean, Dr. Ural, as well as students, faculty member, Dr. Berg, Dr. Tien, and I look forward to collaborating with a place and a campus which is so beautiful. I'm ready to come there anytime. And you all have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll let Dean Biswas close the session.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Jamshidi, for a very interesting talk. We enjoyed all your things that you've been doing with respect to integrated education. So that was very informative. Thank you again. So this is, of course, part of our TALIS Day, teaching and learning in STEM. And it has been a fabulous sort of day of events. I'll just briefly thank or allude to the different events we had today. We started off with our faculty members talking about innovations in education, from using virtual reality, augmented reality, to flipped classes, to minority-based hands-on programs. It was very fascinating to see. And then also students being taught how to make apps for mobile devices and so forth. It was very fascinating to see all the exciting educational programs. After that, the students had a Q&A session with the provost and the dean, asking us very pointed questions. How did we handle the COVID situation? What we learned from it with respect to our educational efforts, and what are we going to do going forward? So it was very informative, and trying to have a good discussion with them. And we, of course, alluded to many things that the university and, of course, the College of Engineering would be doing in the future. We capped it off with your talk, Dr. Jamshidi. So thank you very much. And I would like to thank all the participants. Several have come and gone due to their other engagements, but I'll take this opportunity to let you know. And I must thank Dr. Ural for putting together this. This is the third year that TALIS has been such a great success. The first year that I'm, of course, part of it, and I enjoyed every minute of it. And thank you to Renee Evans and all the others who helped Dr. Ural put this great event together. We will look forward to our fourth event. Those who are here, we will definitely ensure that there is the Zoom link for you all, even if we do it in person. So do tune in, and we look forward to connecting to you about the same time next year. It will be a very special TALIS Day event, because it will be held on our 75th year of the College of Engineering. So thank you again, everybody, students, staff, faculty.
Thank you again. And I really enjoyed being part of your program. And I mentioned two of my former Native American students, just to mention two of my former African American students. One is a fellow, was a fellow who's now Dean of Engineering at Ohio State. Another one is a chief scientist at Raytheon Technologies in Connecticut. I have about 185 stories to tell about each individual student.
Good.
Someday I will write another book on those students.
Excellent. That should be great. Yeah, thank you again, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.